Hi, I'm John Silvestri, editorial advisor to GlobeStreet.com, and we're here in Nashville for SIOR's Fall World Conference. And I'm really happy to have as my guest Jill Rasmussen with the Davis Group. Jill, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit more about the Davis Group, and by way of getting into a discussion about the healthcare market and what you're seeing in terms of where we stand post-Obamacare, and if companies are still riding the wave of that. Talk to me.
Right. Well, the Davis Group is based in Minneapolis. I have two partners. We focus on healthcare, strategic planning and advisory services, brokerage and development in that marketplace. So we work with healthcare systems and independent clinics, and we help them through navigate through the real estate piece of of a lot of the locations that they have and their expansions. The healthcare market in general, Obamacare is still going on. There's a long way to go. There's a lot that hasn't been implemented yet, but it will be over the next few years. A big piece of Obamacare from the real estate side is the way that the systems and the doctors are now going to be reimbursed for their care. It's patient-centered. They're really going to be paid for the patient experience, and so they're trying to provide clinics in the neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. They are trying to push the care out of the hospitals, which is very expensive, and get it into the neighborhoods. So they've been looking at, over the last several years, retail sites, large, kind of junior boxes that have left, like Gander Mountain, Borders Books, some of those types of things, a blockbuster space. So they've been getting out into the markets. What they've also been trying to do is put together larger specialty facilities in these neighborhoods so that the patients can get to the sites rather than trying to get on a hospital campus or a multi-tenant medical office building on the hospital campus.
Hand centers or whatever it happens to be.
And so the push is, again, to get the care out of the expensive hospital setting into the consumer neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And so what we've been finding is that it's hard to retrofit retail space in some cases or have the right neighbors. So these facilities are getting developed, and these systems are really trying to make that push into all these markets and neighborhoods. And so we've seen a big trend for a better environment, better patient care, lower cost, quality of care, and then again they're reimbursed based on that. So there's a big impact on the real estate side from Obamacare.
You also deal with corporate office as well,
yes,
as you mentioned, and it's interesting that you're talking about going to retail centers, neighborhood centers. I was just involved in a panel recently wherein we were talking about the potential death, and I always question this as being an overstatement, the death of the suburban office park, because younger generation is now moving toward city centers because they want to work where they live, where they play.
Right. Yeah, I think there's definitely a trend away from the suburban office park, and there's several reasons for that. A lot of those buildings built several years ago have low parking ratios, mm-hmm. So now that companies are trying to consolidate and put more people in less space, you don't have the parking capacity. You're not near any amenities. It's difficult, sometimes to have nothing around for those employees that you're trying to attract to your company. So the younger generation wants work, live, play in a convenient area, which is again trending towards the downtown, more urban markets. And I think there'll be a place for those suburban office parks, but it certainly isn't something that's a trend that we're seeing, going forward. And those mm-hmm. buildings tend to be a little obsolete as well. Right. They have lower ceiling heights. They don't have as many windows. It's hard to create kind of the collaborative space that these younger workers want versus the private offices of the past. And so the space design is different. And so there's a lot of things kind of trending towards, those companies looking at vibrant, downtown markets.
You brought up the amenities, and we've heard two different things at this conference and at other conferences that I've attended, where the millennials are pushing for a certain look in their office, a certain feel. That whole Google effect with pools and nap centers and
right.
foosball tables. Someone brought, I don't know if you were at the session that just ended on corporate tenancy.
Yes.
But they brought up the phrase toy space, which could be just a fad. What do you think of what we're hearing millennials are demanding that is long range? Obviously, they're here to stay. Younger generation, gosh darn it.
Right. What are we going to do with them?
But what of their so-called demands will stick, do you think, in the office environment of tomorrow? And what is a fad just now?
Right. I think trying to understand, in the presentation earlier, they talked about how do they measure productivity, and are these environments actually creating a more productive worker, or are there more distractions? Mm-hmm. What's going to come out of that? And I don't know if they'll figure out how to measure that or not, but I think
it's something they've been debating for 30 years now.
So I think it's the flexibility aspect of it, being able to maybe again work at home or have the location be close to home, so that they've got more flexibility with family, work and life balance and those types of things. I think because a lot of these big companies, they've got so many different, departments. They've got creative type people, they've got IT people that they're trying to attract and keep long term with their company. So I think a lot of that will continue. And just trying to create the right environment for these people to get, as much productivity as they can with the group of workers that they have.
The first time I heard it was this morning, when they started talking about the gamer generation following the millennials. So I assume that means that as long as we give them Grand Theft Auto 12 in the office, everybody's going to be happy.
Right. What kind of keeps them focused and trying to get what you need, from them as a company, and how to create that environment. And so I think the collaborative, creative arena is going to stay. Mm-hmm. And the space, I think now companies, again, their biggest issue is labor, good labor, and trying to keep those employees. And so from having, a daycare center in the building to, a pool table to a collaborative work area, I think those types of things create an environment where those employees feel comfortable. They can, network and socialize with their peer group. Mm-hmm. And I think that trends here for quite some time.
Are you seeing more of a trend toward space designers, both in-house and advisory, turning to the employees to gauge their wants, their needs?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of surveys being done. As companies try to downsize, they feel like, are they not providing, what that employee needs, or the space, or the surroundings that they need? So I think they're doing a lot of surveys to say what would make this a better environment, so that you can keep them long term. The millennials don't seem to be long-term, dedicated to that first company that they started to work with. There are better opportunities
regardless of whether or not they like it there,
right,
according to surveys.
Right. And so they have other opportunities, and I think those companies need to continue to be creative in ways to keep the top talent. It's hard to do that when there's so many other opportunities and companies that are now using their space uniquely for branding. You're seeing buildings being built. We worked on a project for the National Marrow Donor Program, which has a phenomenal mission. And they took this opportunity to have a headquarters built for them that was more efficient, and used it for branding, and created these collaborative areas and work areas for their younger employee base,
right,
versus staying in an older office building. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of seeing those companies brand and take a really unique look at the layout of the space, the design of it, how it works, and having those amenities, food close by, daycare, workout facility, all those types of things.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out as we get 2 or 3 years into this trend.
Exactly. Because I think, again, you've got another, like you said, the younger generation coming in behind the millennials.
Right.
What is that going to look like, and does that change? There's so much technology in those younger generations, and how are they going to utilize that, and how are the companies going to embrace that and keep those people, even though it could be a whole different work environment. But I think the parking situation, when you're building the buildings, the floor plates are bigger, the parking ratios are bigger, so that's kind of taking care of what everybody's looking for now. What is that going to be in 10 or 15 years? And
the thing that nobody seems to have brought up so far is we're still assuming that there's going to be a continuation of the recovery, the upward trend in the economy. At some point, there's going to be another recession, and probably sooner rather than later. And that can change the landscape immensely and knock all of what we're talking about into a cocked hat, conceivably.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that planning is going to do. But I think over the last 5 years or so, corporate America has just continued to downsize or right-size and try to be more productive in less space, which hopefully drives more profits for the company. But they certainly need to be sensitive to what could be coming, down the road. We've been through some pretty difficult real estate times, and I think it's still challenging because those companies upon lease renewal just continue to consolidate.
Right.
So space keeps coming back, and that space sometimes again is obsolete. It's harder to lease when these companies are able to pick up and move into brand new space, and the older space kind of gets left behind and hopefully repositioned into something else. But it's
going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting trend to continue to watch on the corporate office side, the healthcare side, even retail is changing. So there's a lot changing.
Yeah.
And so the real estate, we're trying to kind of keep up with that and be able to provide the right facilities for the right groups.
We're all pumping as hard as we can. Jill, thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
It was
Thanks
a real
for having
pleasure.
me.
My
Thanks.
pleasure. And I want to thank you for joining us on Globe Street TV.